In today's video, we're going to figure out if Ray should buy a house. Ray makes approximately $7,800 a month gross and $5,500 net. He wants to buy a $450,000 house. He currently has a 2022 Camry payment for $610. He has one credit card, $90 a month minimum payment, and he wants to buy because his uncle, who also happens to be his realtor, is telling him he should buy right now while the rates are lowering because prices are going to start going up very soon. So let's just get right into it, shall we? First things first, let me describe the lay of the land, if you will. I've made a bunch of these videos in the past before, but I kind of want to just restart this series again and let you guys know how I'm going to be evaluating each situation. By the way, if you're interested in submitting your application or your situation, please email me at contact@javiervidana.com. Feel free to email me and include as much information you're going to see in this video as possible. Anyways, let's describe the 4-step process I'm going to use. And the reason why I do this process is it should be done in order, right? And if there's something that's not right in that one specific step, then you need to just not continue. And you need to just stop your home buying process until that, and basically make your goals around figuring that out before you move on to the next step. The thing is a lot of people, when they're looking to buy a house, don't really know what to do. So they start like with this, right? They start researching the market. They start looking at housing market crash videos. Is the housing market going to be okay? Am I going to make a ton of money or am I going to lose a bunch of money? They start really focusing on that when you guys don't even have your savings ready, your budget's ready. You don't even know what your ideal monthly payment looks like. So before we focus on that, let's do this one step at a time. We're going to figure out if you even qualify for a house first. Like, what are we doing here? If you don't even have the right credit score, then you need to focus on that first. Once we figure out what you qualify, we're not going to stop there. We're going to see if you're actually prepared to buy a house, you have the right mindset, you have the right savings situation, and then we're going to talk about the most important one. Can you even afford your monthly payment? Because there's a huge difference between what you can afford and what you can qualify. After that, we're going to try to analyze Ray's local market. Now, luckily, he is buying in the area that I happen to be in. He has an uncle realtor, of course, so he's not using me, but I can give him a lot more specific local market data that you guys can replicate for yourself. Got it? Cool. Let's move on. So first and foremost, let's start off with qualify. Ray has a credit score of 690. Now, I'll be honest with you, that is not the best credit score, but it's not the end of the world, okay? So with the credit score with FHA, as long as you're under 700, you're in. I think it goes as low as 580, I believe, in some situations. For most situations with FHA, as long as you are above 600, you're going to be good and you're going to get most of the good stuff. FHA is very lenient. Like, it's basically everyone who's able to qualify gets the same rate, gets the same, PMI at the same time, as long as you qualify for the right terms. It's meant to be definitely a first-time home buyer program, right? So they qualify for that. Now with 690, you might be able to do like a low tier conventional product, but with conventional, it's definitely more traditional. It's gonna be like based on your credit and situation like that. So if you have a lower credit with conventional, you might have higher PMI. Whereas FHA, you're getting that high PMI regardless if you're at 750, 800 or 650, 620, right? So I'm gonna say for sure you're a shoe-in for FHA, so let's see if we can mark it in green. So I think for sure you're a shoe-in for FHA. I think your conventional is questionable, but it's doable if you want to go that route. Second is, so that's good. Let's figure out what the costs are going to be. So to figure out the costs, quite simply, we just kind of break it down step by step. So if the cost of the house is going to be $450,000 house, we know that with FHA, it's going to be 3.5% down. That's going to equal $15,750, and we can guesstimate the closing cost to be about 2%, 2.5% with FHA, especially because it's the area I'm very familiar with. So let's hit that. Off the bat, this does look a little on the high side, but I mean, honestly, I really would see closing costs be between $8,000 and $10,000. Phoenix isn't really known for its high taxes, but this is one that you're going to kind of have to just use this number if you're not familiar with the closing costs, 2 to 3%, 3% on the higher end, 2% on the lower end. So let's just assume it's going to be around 11,000. And if it ends up being a lot better than that, then you just saved a little bit extra money. Like I'm thinking it might be closer to 8 to 9K, but we'll leave it at that. So essentially the cost to buy the house, if we add both of these numbers up, are going to be about $27,000. So that is what they're going to need to buy a home. Now, Ray did communicate to me that he has $40,000 saved for his home purchase. Well, actually, that's his entire savings. So he definitely will work for the cost. Now, if you're a longtime viewer, you already see the problem with this situation, but if you don't know, just keep watching. You'll learn eventually, right? Now, let's figure out what does a debt to income ratio look like, because this is how a lender will figure out if you qualify, not if you can afford, if you can qualify. So essentially what we're going to do here is we're going to use this formula. So it's going to be your mortgage plus your other debts divided by your gross monthly income has to equal around the 43% range to figure out what your max qualifiable number is. So the formula will work as follows, right? We're just going to obviously solve for that mortgage number right here. So we're going to solve for X. In this case, the monthly gross income is $7,800, and he has two payments here. We're going to add the $90 monthly payment for the credit card and the $600 payment for the credit card, $610. So we'll make that $700 right here, okay? So step one is going to be just plug in all the numbers, okay? And if you're doing this at home, do your best to follow along. Watch this a few times if you have to really get a good idea of what to do, but it's pretty simple here. So what we're going to do as a first step is, if you guys remember from math class, we have to kind of just work around and figure this out. So in order to move this number over here, we have to multiply, right? So we're going to multiply it by 7,800 so we can get rid of it here. But anything we do on this side, we also have to do on this side, right? So then what happens, there you go, is we move over here, and now we have to multiply this side by 7,800. So essentially, if you're not following along here, just do this now. Basically, multiply your gross monthly income by 0.43 to figure it out. Now, it is worth saying with FHA, you could go up to 50% with your DTI, but we'll just leave it at 43% for now, okay? So essentially, X plus 700 equals, so essentially 7,800 times 0.43 or 43% is 3,354. So basically step one, we figure out X plus 700 equals 3,354. Now the next step is we're going to get rid of that plus 700, right? So same thing here. We're going to get rid of it by subtracting 700. So now we just have X. But then we also have to subtract 700 over here, just like we did with step one. And now this is how essentially it should look like. X equals 3,054 minus 700. That number is 2,654. So essentially that is X. That is the monthly payment that you can qualify up to. So how you can modify this, as you can see using the numbers, is we have to basically do a few things. We increase the monthly income or we decrease the debts, basically, right? So that massive car payment of $600 is literally affecting what you can qualify for up to like $600. This would be like $3,200 or $3,100 if that car payment wasn't there. So essentially that's how they would do it. Now there's a little more algebra than a lot of people are comfortable with, but you know, there's a good idea of how it works. And once again, I know math isn't fun, so if that was too overwhelming for you, you can just literally look up any calculator online to do this, or you can go to my Patreon, and I have a whole home buyer suite that includes how to do this. You just literally plug in your income, and it'll give you basically what you can qualify for. It'll also tell you what you can afford, but we're not there yet, but just giving you that if you need it. But for everyone else, hopefully it was not that hard to follow along with. All right, so basically, in order for the debt to income ratio to work, you could go up to 2,654. Now, it being FHA, yes, we technically go up to 50%. So let me see if I can do some quick maths here. So yeah, that would be up to 3,200 because you're going FHA. So you would be able to qualify for a lot more. So in order for the debt to income ratio to work, that's where you would have to be. So far, it's looking pretty solid. Your down payment works technically for what you have. Your debt to income ratio of 43 to 50% works up to $3,200. So once again, the first step is just to see if you qualify, which by the way, it might surprise you to find out that a lot of buyers that aren't getting themselves educated are just doing this. The lender does it for them. They don't bother doing anything else. So pretty scary, but it's true. Down payment, $27K, debt to income ratio up to $3,200. Okay, so it works essentially. So we give this a check mark and we move on to the next step. Are you prepared? Is Ray prepared? Well, first and foremost, this is like more conversational topics, okay? Bad debt control. What does this mean? Do you have any significant debt that's high interest that we need to pay off first? Now, you don't have to be completely debt free. I know there's a lot of people preaching that kind of philosophy, but I do believe that you need to have your debts in control. If you have like a 33% interest credit card that's like almost at like limit and you're thinking about buying a house, maybe before you go commit to a $3,000 mortgage payment, you should use those $3,000 to pay that off quickly and fast, right? So are your bad debts under control? Now, if you have, 2 or 3 credit cards that are like moderate and, they're like at 25 or 20% balance, then it's like, okay, that then you make your own personal choice based on whatever your personal philosophy is. Now, he did communicate he has a $90 monthly payment. I'm not really sure where that gives me. I don't really know what the balance is. I don't know anything like that. $90 in my experience is like what, like a $5,000 to $8,000 balance around there. Am I right or wrong? That's been a while. Usually when I see like a $40 or $50 balance, that's like a lot more manageable, like around $1,500, $1,000. But I wish I knew more information what the interest is, what anything like that. But also that car payment, $600 is pretty much eating up a big chunk of his qualification. If it's 2022, he probably just got it in the last year or two, so that's probably going to still need a few years. So like if his personal philosophy is he wants to be debt free, then he should definitely approach this and tackle that first, right? But it doesn't look like that's the approach he has. But for everyone else that's watching this, this is where you would like tackle that stuff, okay? Smart savings, what does that mean? Well, a lot of people like to just start saving just like for a house, just like massively without really even thinking what they're doing. I prefer it to be done a certain way. Let me show you what the savings priority, in my opinion, is. At least you should focus on getting your emergency fund first before you start doing anything. So at least 2 to 3 months. It could be up to 6 months, 9 months, whatever it is, whatever your conspiracy level minded, not conspiracy level minded rather, but however paranoid you are that things are going to go off, right? I'm personally okay with like 2 to 3 months as a starting point. Once you have that, I believe you should work on your retirement. You might have your retirement begin with your work, so that's like already fine. But a lot of us don't have that privilege, right? So go meet with a financial advisor. Odds are it'll be free. Get started with something. Even if it's initial opening deposit of $500 to $1,000, you can only contribute $100 a month, whatever. Just don't have your house be your only source of like you putting money into something, hoping it, like, I don't want to say the I word, the terrible investment word, but for a lot of people, they look at their house as their only investment, and I personally don't agree with that. So have something else started at least, okay? Even if it's not directly related to your retirement, please just start something else. Okay, something else that is exciting where you can actually make some money back. If this is for anyone who has a family, I know we're all young whippersnappers out here, but setting up a will, setting up a trust, stuff like that, it costs money. It's like, I think 2 or 3K last I got checked. And like, this is stuff you got to set up before you really go make a purchase. Like put your adult pants on. This is what we got to do, right? Only then you should start focusing on the housing fund. Now, this is already a big red flag to me for Ray. All he told me is he has 40K. He's at 40,000 saved, he said. What I wanted to see, and I don't care, I don't need to know the numbers. If he would have said, Javier, I have a emergency fund set up already. My retirement fund is started. And I have $40,000 for my house. Great. I don't need to see the numbers, but it's great. Like, okay, now I can confidently say $40,000 is for the house. Now I can plan it wisely. But if my man's has no savings started, it's just 40K, that is scary. That's scary. I would be like, hey man, you don't have 40K. Let's put 10 of that into an emergency fund. Let's start your retirement with at least 5K. I don't know, whatever. So you really have like, I don't know, 25K. I'm hoping I'm going to play, this is the first one I do in a while. I'm hoping that the situation is, he just forgot to disclose to me that he has a retirement investment and all that started. Odds are he doesn't, but I want to keep the video going. But I'm going to say this is probably red flag already. Please make sure that you guys are setting this up. Okay, that's my red flag. I like my red flag. Budget, pretty simple. Are you on a budget? He didn't send me a budget or anything like that. Some of you guys actually take the time to do that. That's great. I don't need to know what your money is, and I don't need to know what your subscriptions are. I just need to know you are on some kind of budget plan. If you would have told me, hey man, I'm on a 50, 30, 20, or hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, great. Okay, that's fine. Just have a budget set up and it will definitely add up to this part here, which when we get to, we'll talk about for sure. And more importantly, your mental why. And I think now more than ever, this is important because honestly, it's a really dumb idea to buy a house right now. Whoa, did you just say that? Yeah. It's not the greatest idea to buy a house right now. You're buying something at an unusually high interest rate, and the guarantee of it going down in value is probably more sure than it going up in value. So you're buying basically a depreciating asset for you to live in. If you're playing safer, it would make more sense to rent, honestly. So knowing all that, why would you still buy? That's for you to find out, my friend. There has to be a greater why to why you're doing this. I want to buy a house for this reason. And if someone tells you like, well, you're still stupid for buying, the market's going to do blah, 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 blah. You're going to be like, that's fine, dude, but this is why I'm buying. That is for you to explore. I can't just tell you what it is. Me personally, I think I might have shared my story before in the past. You know, I grew up and never really had a house, right? It was really important for me to own where I live, to have power over my domain, even though technically the bank owns it. It's a mortgage, and if I stop paying, I'll take it away. But it's more important to me to have power over my domain, to have ownership over it, and live in an area where my kids are going to have security and going to be raised in the same like area, go to the same school for like their entire elementary and middle school life. I don't want to be moving. I hate moving, you know, for the foreseeable future. I want to stake my claim, and yeah, whatever happens with the market happens with the market, but I just wanted to stake my claim because it's just what I believe in and I'm passionate in. You can take mine if you want, I guess, but really, like, this is for you to explore. What is your why? And for you, some of you guys are like, you know what? I don't really have a strong why. I don't want to take the risk. I think I'll rent. That's fine. You still have to have a budget. You still have to have savings. Don't be dumb. Don't be dumb. That's the point of the video. Don't be dumb. Next, let's talk about the affordability. Can Ray afford a house? And should he rent versus buy? So here's the thing. This is probably where the rubber meets the road for Ray. Can he afford a house? If you remember, he qualifies up to $3,200, give or take. I think it's going to be easier to use computers. So we're going to switch over to this right here. My home buying resource document. So we're going to just plug in his stuff here real quick. Give me 1 second. All right, I plugged everything in, and now essentially we're going to go over here. And there's a lot of schools of thought, okay? Looks like he qualifies up to 3210. We're pretty close there, so math is mathing. But basically, there's several schools of thought. Basically, as long as your monthly mortgage payment does not exceed 20 to 30% of your net income, you're not considered house poor. Basically, that's a Frankenstein to the many rules of thought. I've heard 33% of your net. I've heard 28% of your gross income. Oh, you know, everything, right? So really, I got it set up here nice and easy just for you guys to kind of follow. Really safe is 25% of your net. Really tight is going to be 30% of your gross, but really this should be avoided. The tight is 28% of your gross. The just right, in my opinion, is about 33% of your net income, a third of your monthly income, but give or take, this is the range you want to be in. Now, already we see the huge issue here. Even though he qualifies up to $3,200 a month, all I can see why it was $3,210 because I put $600. There it is. Okay. We're not in that range at all. Technically, he might be able to push to 28% of your gross if he wants to, but we're not near here whatsoever, right? So if he follows the just right number, he technically can only afford an $1,800 monthly payment, because that's crazy. Can you believe that? Like a mortgage lender would probably qualify him all the way up to $3,200, even though he's only bringing home about $5,500. That's like 58% of your take-home income. That's pretty crazy. So $1,800 is what they can afford. So how does that look like? Well, I can tell you that for sure. So let's kind of figure out what that looks like now using a mortgage calculator. So for the calculator, I'm going to use my friend Kyle from When the House You Love's calculator, which I think is the best mortgage calculator. You can add different options. It's pretty cool. So let's just kind of figure it out. $400,000, $450,000. Monthly taxes in the areas looking in Chandler are not that high. They're maybe going to be like 120, probably 150 around there. Monthly insurance, maybe 100. Sorry, Floridians and Texans. I know you guys pay a lot more. Monthly HOA is about 50. Okay. Conventional is, I mean, let's go with FHA because that's what he qualified for technically. 6 months. Well, that's why the uncle's saying to buy, right? So Uncle Billy Bob. I don't know his real name. 6.12. What was it? Let's call this one FHA. Now let's add a second option, conventional 5% down, because technically he did have the money. Now the credit score is going to be kind of rough, so I'm pretty sure they're not going to give him the best rate. But if we're doing 30-year fixed 6.6, I'm assuming they'll probably do like 6.8, 6.9 around there, kind of give or take. So let's just go with that. 6.9. MI is going to definitely be on the higher side, unfortunately. Let's just go 150, make it nice and easy. So let's see which option works. So the FHA one saves them $12,000 at the end of 10 years. After 30 years, that one saves them $26K. So it's going to be a big difference here. But the important part here is the monthly payment. With FHA, that monthly payment, let's go back to like year one, is going to be $31.81. That conventional payment is going to be $32.66. The conventional will eventually drop off at a standard. Depends on what happens with the market and all that stuff. But after, it eventually will drop off. But the FHA looks like it stays cheaper. But either way, we're at like $3,100, $3,200 range. Now, if we go back to the Magic iPad, if we plug in here what the mortgage payment looks like, which is what, $30.88, we can see the big issue here. He can qualify for it, but he can't afford it. And welcome to the United States of America, ladies and gentlemen. This is exactly the issue that most of you guys will probably have. It doesn't make sense. And it just doesn't make sense. The rates need to drop, prices need to drop. It's not jiving here well, right? So then what happens here? Does Ray need to go find himself a Mrs. Ray or a Mr. Ray, whatever direction or whatever boat he's in? Maybe, because then if that income is a lot higher, then maybe he can sustain that a lot better. So that's the tough part. And unfortunately, it kind of knocks him out at this point. You can't afford a house, Ray. It doesn't look like you can afford a house. So any research on the market, any research on all that stuff, you can do it if you want, but it just doesn't work for affordability. But the trick is, you need to really keep this in mind. A lender will probably pre-qualify you, but you're going to put yourself in a situation where you're going to be walking the pool, and yes, you can breathe, but if something wrong ever happens, you're going to be put in a tough spot. So Ray, please, should you buy a house? If the question is, can you buy a house? Yeah, you can buy a house. Should you buy a house? Well, it doesn't look like you should. It looks like maybe if like you worked on getting rid of that car payment, it's not so big, then you kind of loosens up everything. Maybe if you're buying once you're like with someone, another spouse or a partner that's being able to provide income, maybe if the prices were lower, you look at a different area. All these things are variables, but it doesn't look like, other than that, it makes sense. Unfortunately, the buck ends there. Ray, thank you for sending your information. And if you want to send your information, all you gotta do is email contact@javiervidana.com. Unfortunately, it is a sad one today. So Ray, I don't know if you're by your uncle, man. That's the big thing, and people saying like, now that interest rates are dropping, should you go into the buy and, before prices go up? I just made a video before this one talking about that. I really don't think the prices are going to go up. We're already like really peaking right now, but I know, who knows? We might be full of poop. Either way, Ray, I would just hold off. Let's work on other things, work on getting rid of those debts, maybe save some more money, build the emergency funds. I'll find other ways to save your money, but right now it doesn't look like you can really afford. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. See you on the next one.